Hello and welcome to Unprofessional Engineering. My name is James.
And you got Luke.
Luke, we're kicking off a new series, giving you credit for coming up with this idea.
Woot woot.
Companies that built the world.
I didn't come up with a name.
Well, no, it's a sweet name that I came up with.
There's some haters on the name of the title of this new and amazing series we're going to be doing.
Hey, if you have a better title, people, email us at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com and let us know.
I don't think there's going to be a better one. That's actually pretty good.
That's pretty good. Today, we're going to focus on Boeing as our first company that's built the world.
So where this came up, I saw this sweet video about Corning.
Of course you did.
Because you know me and my video watching.
Which is not just for research. You just watch these things.
I do. Like, yeah. So I saw this sweet video, and we're probably going to do Corning eventually.
Yeah.
And when you think of Corning, I think of like glass block walls.
Yep.
And the reality is they make so much stuff, and they've had so many different things they're involved in. We kind of wanted to keep that one, and then we thought, there's some timely things happening with Boeing right now, so we thought we'd pick Boeing. And Boeing is a pretty interesting company, and now that we've done the research, I'd love to get a job there.
I wouldn't be upset about that.
Yeah.
About you getting one there.
Yeah.
Then I could get one.
You think they'd let us do the podcast, or they'd poo-poo it?
If it was all about Boeing, maybe.
Okay.
Hey, maybe they'll hear this and want to sponsor us. I hear that's how those things work.
Could you imagine a sponsorship from Boeing?
Burn. Okay, so let's move on.
So who is Boeing?
Who is Boeing?
So
That's
Boeing.
a great question.
So Boeing is the world's largest aerospace company and leading manufacturer of commercial jetliners, defense, space, and security systems that serve providers in all those different markets. And they're the biggest manufacturing exporter in the United States by far.
Importer, exporter?
Importer, exporter. I'm into latex.
I wonder if that statement still holds true after all of the recent happenings.
Well, my guess is they're still making stuff.
Yeah, probably.
They didn't totally stop making stuff.
Yeah.
And they supply governments and companies and organizations in over 100. I didn't even think there was 150 countries in the world. Just saying.
That's reasonable. That's
Yeah.
always building our credibility, Luke.
150 countries.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's bananas.
Yeah. Hey, so wanted to throw this out there.
Shoot.
If you get sick of our voices, a lot of the stuff that I'm going to be talking about comes from aerotime.aero, which apparently is a thing, which gives us all sorts of breakdown on Boeing. Or if you head over to their website, tons of Boeing information.
Okay.
All right.
Let's do a little history, James.
History.
I know you and your histories.
All I do is history. I love it. Okay, Boeing kicked off July 15th, 1916 by William Edward Boeing.
102 years.
Three?
Roughly,
almost.
three.
Yeah, almost 103.
It's crazy.
It wasn't originally called Boeing, which I
Yeah.
thought was interesting.
Yep.
It was called Pacific Aero Products Company. And that name lasted a whole 1 year.
Yeah, it didn't last
Before
long.
it became Boeing.
Yeah.
So I had a question for you about
Shoot.
that, since we're staying on topic here. Is naming a company after yourself pretentious? Like, I didn't name this the James Podcast.
You didn't. I think if you have the right name for it.
And Boeing's sweet, you're saying?
I mean, Boeing doesn't sound like a last name. And maybe we've just culturally
That's what I'm
learned that
thinking.
Boeing is the name of a company. I think it's a little pretentious. I do.
Microsoft wasn't named Gates.
Yeah, or Apple, or,
Yeah.
Yeah, but the
I
Dell
think
cat,
so.
his last name is Dell, right? The
Yeah.
guy that owns Dell. I guess, and he's
Michael Dell,
he's a
I
pretty
think.
pretentious person, if I recall.
I don't really know.
He owns an island, I think.
Oh, man, I hate him. I want to own an island.
Yeah, I would say it's pretentious.
I own an island in the Mon. Ugh. All right. So they designed their first plane, the Model C two-place training seaplane, in November of that year. So, I mean, only a couple months they designed a plane. That's pretty solid, right?
Yeah.
I feel like they probably stole the design, but who am I to say? This plane is just what you thought it would be. It had like those pontoon things on the bottom
it's
of
to
it.
land
Did
on
you
the
look-
water.
Yeah. Did you look at a picture of
I
this?
did. It's pretty ugly.
It was really ugly. I wouldn't get on that.
No,
I
it
don't know
looked
about
dangerous. It
you.
looked like a death trap.
Yeah, it would like land on lakes and stuff like that. So that's something. And so I don't know. I guess you have more information. So I'll let you go from there until the wars start.
So I want to go back and talk about our boy, Billy Boeing. So he was born in Detroit, Michigan. Go Tigers! That's for our old boss.
My boss.
Your current
My
boss,
current
that's
boss.
right. Yeah, so he was born in Detroit, Michigan. His mother was Marie Ortmann, she was from Vienna, Austria, and her husband was Wilhelm Boeing, and they spelled it differently because I guess they Americanized it whenever he came over, but it was Boing with 2 little dots over the O.
That's the right way to say it.
And he was from Hollenberg, Germany. Hollenberg.
You got it.
Yeah, I nailed it.
Those are the multiple ways you can pronounce
exactly. And so he immigrated to the United States back in 1868, and he was a laborer. And whenever he made it here, they ended up in the timber and like wood products is what they got involved in, and somehow he ended up owning some mineral rights up near Lake Superior. So his family ended up being kind of well off just because of their extra hard work. So in 1890, when William Boeing was 8, his father died of the old influenza.
Influenza.
You know how many people died of influenza?
Better than dysentery.
A whole bunch. So his mom, she remarried. She sends him away back to Europe to educate him. So he ends up going to Switzerland. He ends up coming back to the U.S. for prep school in Boston. So they had some money. You're sending your kids to
Cash
Europe.
money,
You're bringing them back.
They have podcast money.
I'm sure they probably did. So he enrolled in Yale University. And he left Yale.
Did he drop out?
He did. Again. So you think dropping out is just something that like new, rich people do? Like even back in the day they did. So he left Yale back in 1903 before graduating to get into the lumber business.
Interesting.
So
all right. Well, that was nice.
Yeah, we got to get because we got to talk about him.
I didn't give his parents any cred.
Well, it's interesting because we did that Inventor Country Ranking podcast. Did we post that one yet? Okay, we didn't post that. So it's coming soon. So stay tuned for it. But it's interesting to see how many smart people come from Germany and Austria and all that whole area.
Well, yeah, there's a lot to be said for
Croatia, all we got is Tesla.
Yeah, I am German, just saying.
You're a smart person.
Yeah, thanks. I like how you lie. No one can see your face. That's cool. All right, so moving towards World War Uno. See, that's Spanish for World War One.
Okay.
I
got that.
It's 1917. The Navy said, "Hey, Boeing, we're gonna hook you up with some big time cash." They purchased 51 out of 56 seaplanes built, making the company financially successful pretty quickly. So what's that? 1 whole year, and now they're like, "Oh man, we have all the money we could possibly want."
They did have all the money,
and we scored this sweet government contract. So that's nice. So this kind of established this long-standing military partnership that Boeing and the U.S. have had. The first commercial plane, though, the B-1, was not used to carry passengers. I thought this was really weird because I just figured you made planes, you travel. Like you have people travel.
Of course.
So we didn't move people because coast-to-coast journeys took over 24 hours still, which seems nuts to me.
In a plane?
Yeah. The aircraft delivered mail instead, and Boeing won a whole bunch of contracts with the post office.
Yeah, I guess planes were a lot slower with propellers back then.
A lot smaller, too. We'll get into some of that as well. So that's neat. So in order to operate the growing airmail business, they founded the Boeing Air Transport in 1927. And this is a fun fact for you, later gave birth to United Airlines 4 years later. So shout out to United, and thank you for constantly canceling and delaying my flights.
And interesting, so fun fact about that, the U.S. government actually had to intervene there. So it was soon after, so this was like 1934-ish, the U.S. government accused good old William Boeing of having a bit of monopoly.
This
is happening with Facebook right now. Did you see that Facebook co-founder came out and said that he thinks Facebook should be broken up into smaller companies because they're acquiring one of the founders. He's not there anymore.
Oh, well, yeah, that's what you say when you're not there anymore.
But so they said he had to break up the company. So what he did was he diversified the company and broke Boeing in 1934 up into 3 different organizations. So one is United Aircraft Corporation, one is Boeing Airplane Company, which later became the Boeing Company, and United Airlines.
Interesting.
Isn't that crazy?
That is very interesting.
Could you imagine having a company that big and that many success? I mean, all these companies still exist from 1934.
They're doing a good job.
I guess.
Become buddies with the government. That's what it says.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So moving on, a bad thing happened. It's what's actually happening to me right now.
Oh, no.
It's called the Great Depression.
Oh.
So I assume they had something like Game of Thrones going on at that time, and the series ended, and everyone just fell into this Great Depression.
That's
and
what
then
happened.
They were like, we don't want airplanes anymore. So that's what's happening with me right now. Feel free to console me. That's great. So it was tough. In 1939, Boeing's rival, McDonnell Douglas Corporation, you've heard of them, I think,
I have.
created the first profitable commercial airplane, the Douglas DC-3, used to carry over 90% of the U.S. air travelers by the beginning of World War II. So not only is the Depression going on and bad things are happening, but now they have this big old rival that's starting to, take passengers all over the world. So then came World War II. You know who loves war? The government.
Oh, they love it.
You know what they do is get all these contracts with people like Boeing and start pumping out military equipment.
Mm-hmm.
Now, before we get into that, let's take a break for a word from our sponsor.
I have to assume that it is Boeing.
It is
right?
actually the Great Depression.
It is every Game of Thrones fan who is so sad there's only one more episode.
Yeah, or sad about the way this season is going. Anyways, no, we don't have a sponsor, which is just really unfortunate.
Yes, it is.
We do have a lot of shout-outs, though.
I
Not
love it.
really. We have a few, though. Nick N. wrote in with his feelings on computers being gaming systems. And I said, yep, they are, but we only have so much time in a podcast, so we decided to go with actual...
Oh, he was poo-pooing that we didn't add
Yeah.
it in. Well, it's all right. It's his opinion.
It's his opinion, but he also wrote back saying he was basically having a bad day and maybe shouldn't have yelled at us.
Oh.
So that made me feel better.
Thanks, Nicky.
After I cried the night away.
Okay.
Update on our friend Ari Y. If you remember Ari, this is the person who wrote a paper based on our podcast on the Manhattan Project.
Oh, my goodness.
Nailed it. Got an A.
Yes.
Maybe, yeah. That's
nice.
right. Also volunteered to do an interview with us from a student point of view, because on our What is Civil Engineering episode that just launched a little bit ago,
Yeah.
go check it out. We mentioned maybe we want to talk to some students about that. So that would be cool. The last shout out I have is just a big thank you to everyone.
Oh, how nice.
We actually got nominated for the best podcast in Pittsburgh, which was pretty cool. And we had a whole bunch of people that I annoyingly email blasted
Yeah,
that
I
went
saw
on
that.
and nominated us for this as well. So that's awesome. Nominations have now closed.
Do we know when we're going to win?
If we make it to the finals, there's going to be another round of voting starting on May 27th
Okay.
through the beginning of July. So after May 27th, go Google Best of PGH 2019 and go to the People and Places and Best Local Podcasts area and vote for us.
Yes, of
That's
course.
awesome. But thank you for the nominations.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Anyways, review us on iTunes or wherever.
Subscribe.
Email us for stickers at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com.
Literally, James, he loves to do nothing other than just go to the post office and send mail.
I actually had someone call me out for not sending them their stickers yet.
Ooh, that
Yeah,
hurts.
it hurt. Well, they live in another country, and that means going to the post office
that's a little
instead
more
of making the
difficult.
wife do it. So
I
you know.
gotcha.
Yeah. Okay, so anyways, past the Great Depression into lovely World War II era. So during the war, Boeing mainly produced, shockingly, military aircrafts. The B-17, known as the Flying Fortress, and the B-29 Super Fortress, which, I mean, had to be pretty super, right?
Yeah.
Are among the most famous Boeing models from that time. The 29 had a much bigger range and was fundamental in winning the war in the Pacific, while the B-17 was used for high-altitude missions in Europe. Yay, Boeing.
That's pretty cool.
Yet
I didn't
again,
realize they were doing high altitude stuff.
I mean, I think high-altitude was probably relatively speaking,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
But again, engineers winning wars. Just what we do.
I know, it is.
Yeah. So after the war, it turns out the military was like, yeah, we don't really need so many planes anymore, but thanks for the help.
We're good.
With keeping us all safe. So a ton of people lost their jobs, and Boeing tried to recoup with transatlantic flights from, like, you know, all over. But the Brits and the Frenchies and the Soviets, they were all in the market by now. And so they were kind of dominating that field. Do you want to go on from there? Am I talking too much?
No, you're good. I have stuff after the history. I have some more current stuff if you want to finish up history. It's up to you.
I don't have much more history,
Okay.
so that's good. So in 1958, I say I don't have much more history, and then I'm like, with 60 years to go. So in 58, they created the 707, which is Pretty famous, right?
Mm-hmm.
A 4-engine airliner that could carry a whopping 156 passengers.
Meanwhile, that's a teeny tiny plane nowadays.
I think it's still pretty impressive considering the time, but you're
Yeah.
right. But they could do it on a transatlantic flight, so that's cool. Due to shorter journeys and more comfortable travel, it won the hearts of passengers. And now all we do is complain about how cramped it is, which is fine. The model was followed by the 727 Trijet and the 737 Twinjet, which later became the world's best-selling aircraft.
They still
of the
make the
20th
730.
century.
They still make 737s.
Yeah, crazy how that is, right? I guess once you find something that works, you stick with it.
Stick with it.
Business was booming in the 66 time frame, and they created, this is cool, the largest building by volume of that time. 13,385,378 cubic meters.
Cubic meters.
Yeah, so that's got to be like at least 17 feet.
I'm betting it's 17 feet, somewhere in that neighborhood.
It was known as the Everett Factory, and it took how long to build, do you think?
18 months.
You read it, didn't you? It's
No, I didn't.
It's 16
I
months.
did.
Very impressive to build something of that size. So, fun fact, the team that built it was later nicknamed the Incredibles because they had Elastigirl and Mr. Incredible working for them. No, basically
Just how
because they were
quickly.
good at building and how fast they built
Okay.
this building. So, that's something. The Everett Factory was where the 747 was built, and it would carry 490 passengers. Holding that was the record for 37 years, 490
Really?
passengers. Yep.
That's crazy.
So skip ahead into the 90s. Boeing and Lockheed won an order for the U.S. Air Force for the twin-engine stealth fighter F-22 Raptor.
That's a sweet-looking
Yeah,
plane.
it really is, isn't it? And we actually just got an email of someone, I think it was Ari actually, suggesting that, I hope I say that name right, A-R-I,
Yeah,
that we do something on stealth technology.
that would be cool.
That would be a good episode. A lot of research, though. I know you don't like that. So, in addition to the jet, Boeing developed the 777 at that time, the 777, super wide, over 1,000 have been sold to this day. That's a lot.
So while we're talking about all these planes,
Absolutely.
here's some
Please
craziness.
chime in.
So, so we're talking about planes, but the crazy thing is they do, satellites, military aircraft, electronics, defense systems, launch systems, advanced information and communication systems. I mean, we're just talking about like one division. But when we think just about planes, because I think that's what everybody thinks about, so they're commercial business only. Boeing has been making these planes forever. So currently today, in my crack research, they make the 737, 747, 767, 777, 787. They have a new 787-10 Dreamliner, the 737 MAX, which is in the news. We'll talk about that later. The 777X. It's crazy, and there is currently more than 10,000 Boeing-built jetliners that are actually actively 10,000. It's more than half of the total fleet of all aircrafts across all airlines.
Wow.
They have more than 50% of their planes running. So if you get on a plane, there's more than a 50% chance that it's going to be a Boeing plane.
And I assume that if you're doing it in America, it's a much higher percent than that, right?
Yeah. And then another fun fact, when you think of cargo, so you mentioned that fact earlier about where they couldn't keep up with some of their competitors. Nowadays, 90% of all the world's cargo is on board a Boeing
90%?
plane. 90%.
Ooh, that's impressive.
Yeah. That's crazy.
I have 2 fun facts for you.
Shoot.
The 777 was the first airplane to be designed by computer.
I think I knew that. I read that fact somewhere else. Which
Can you imagine that? It's been all these things, no computer design, no CAD, no drawings until the 777.
And then when you think of the 777, the complexity of it, could you imagine like what that like general arrangement would look like,
Right?
and like what a bill of material? It would be.
Fun fact number 2.
Shoot.
In 1997, Boeing completed the largest merger in the aviation history by purchasing its competitor, McDonnell Douglas Corp., for more than $13 billion with a B smackers.
There's a lot of money.
That's a lot. Okay, so before we move on, I know you got a whole bunch more to cover.
Yep.
Let's take a break for this week's Luke's Rant.
So here's my rant. It's kind of timely, I think, depending on when you're going to launch this one here, James. I'm not necessarily in charge of when things get launched. Avengers Endgame. I'm not giving any spoilers because
Thank
that's
you.
what this is all about.
I haven't
if you
seen it
haven't
yet.
seen it, it's a great movie. Don't drink anything a few hours beforehand because it is long, if you didn't realize that. But so my daughter didn't see it either. All of her friends tell her what happens in the movie.
Ouch.
And she gets all these spoilers, and she starts hinting at all these spoilers to me. And I don't know if this is good parenting or bad parenting, but basically I yelled at her and threatened to punish her if she spoiled the movie for me before we went and saw it. So I guess what I'm looking for is that good parenting, teaching your kids to not do that sort of thing.
I'd encourage everyone to write in to unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com and let us know if that's good parenting. And I'm not a parent myself, so I feel like I'm probably the right person to answer this.
But definitely.
You probably were not harsh enough.
I should have, it should have been corporal punishment.
I wasn't going to say that, but yeah, I mean,
yeah.
something pretty
Like,
extreme.
I literally had to yell at her like 2 or 3 times. I was like, no, what do not even start hinting about what happens.
That's really upsetting.
Like, and she thought it was a game, and I was like, this isn't a game. Like,
she doesn't know how serious you take this, or seriously.
Your Apple Watch is going to get taken away. Ooh. No iPad, no computer. You're going to come home and you're going to read books and do dishes.
That's
it.
Terrible.
So that's my rant. I don't know if and it's more like, is that good parenting, or should I have been like, yeah, tell me all about it and ruin it for me?
No, you have a life too.
Sorry.
All right, moving on.
Shoot. Okay, I got a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah,
so
that's fine.
We've been talking about their commercial stuff. I do want to talk a little bit about some of their other endeavors.
Yeah.
So from a defense standpoint, they do a ton of defense stuff.
So much stuff. And I think this is going to be one of the cool things about this series is when it's like Boeing, the airplane company, but they do this. All these companies we look at, they're going to do so many other cool things you don't know about.
Yeah, so a couple of their major defense ones they do is they make something called the CK-46. It's the big aerial refueling aircraft that you think of. It's based off of the 767, so this is a huge aircraft. And then the other one I didn't know, and this was via the McDonnell Douglas acquisition, the Apache helicopter.
Yeah, how cool was that?
I think McDonnell Douglas is the ones that did the Apaches, and then since they bought them, and here they're made, the Apache helicopters, they're made out in northeastern PA.
Eastern PA, like Philadelphia area.
Like if you go down below, like the very furthest county in Pennsylvania to like the bottom right. I can't think of the name of the county, but that's where.
Like by York?
Yeah, a little bit further down and to the right. But
well, that makes sense though, because I mean, D.C., Baltimore's right there. That airport's
But that's
huge.
where the Apache helicopter's made.
That's cool. Did you see they make the 702 family of satellites as well? And the CST-100s.
I didn't look into the satellites too much.
So they make a spacecraft as well, and the autonomous Echo Voyager. So they're in the space race as well.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought so.
And then this one, and I have a few more fun facts about.
I love your note on this because it's exactly what I thought.
So they have this thing called Boeing Capital Corporation. Boeing Capital Corporation. Here's what it says specifically on their website. I lifted this from the website. So put this in quotes. Working closely with commercial airplane, defense, space, and security, BCC, Boeing Capital Corporation, ensures customers have the financial needs to buy and take delivery of their Boeing products. With a year-end 2016 portfolio value of approximately $4.1 billion, BCC combines Boeing financial strength with global reach, detailed knowledge of Boeing customers and equipment, and the expertise of a seasoned group of financial professionals. So hold on. I feel like there's some, I can't believe this is legal. So I want an airplane, right? I want to go buy.
They're expensive. I get it. You don't buy it with cash.
Exactly.
I get that.
I want to go buy like the cheapest airplane you make, the 737. It's like $900 million. It's like $93 million to get the cheap end 737, like $93 million. You're also going to be the same company that finances it?
Yeah. That seems weird. I know other businesses do that.
And I know cars do it. Like you have Toyota finance and all that. And I know a lot of car companies do it. But the fact that you control that seems super shady.
I feel like there must be some laundering going on there too, right?
There's got to be some oversight that's happening.
Sort of
it is a separate corporation that's run, different president and all that. But I can't imagine that that just seems super shady to me.
Yeah, I don't like it.
A couple other things. So as of January 1st, 2019, they employ
this is
a
nuts.
lot of people. So this is just in the United States. So they have 3,000 in Alabama, 4,300 in Arizona, 12,000, almost 13,000 in California, almost 15,000 in Missouri. Oklahoma, they got a little over 3,000. Pennsylvania, they got 4,500. South
Really?
Carolina, they got a little over 7. Texas, they have a little over almost 4,000. And in Washington, they have almost 70,000 employees
Wow.
in Washington.
That's crazy.
That's bananas.
What's the total?
Oregon, Washington, Oregon. I
Yeah.
need to be specific. The total
Washington,
global.
Oregon? Meaning they're in those two states?
Washington State. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Washington. I said Oregon. Wow. Washington State. You know me and my geographies. So globally, they have about 30 grand in other places. But globally, they employ over 153,000
Nuts.
people.
Did you see that 45,000 of those are engineers?
I love it.
Crazy. So, I mean, when the podcast goes belly up, we know where we're going,
We know
right?
where we're going.
Craziness. Wow. Okay, so do you want to talk a little bit about the bad happenings with the 737 MAX 8?
Let's save that for 1 second. I have one other
boy.
financial thing that I think is amazing to me. So, everybody's all about financial stability, right? So they have over 10,000 unfilled or backlogged orders. So these are things they haven't even started on, cranking a wrench on or designing. So over 10,000 that are on order, right? So if we take the cheapest plane they make, so the cheapest plane they make is the 737-700, and this thing goes for about $90 million. So one plane, $90 million. And this isn't the only one they're making. Take 90 million times just the backlog, 10,000, that is $900 billion in revenue that is like in the future. Like you are guaranteed, and that's the cheapest plane they make, which is bananas. And some of their planes go for upwards of like 400, so one plane, 450 million. So that's not counting the expensive planes. Could you imagine being a company to say, we can almost guarantee, well, there's some issues going on right now. We'll talk about that. But we can almost guarantee we're going to make almost $1 trillion in the next 20 years because we have a backlog of unfulfilled orders.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Could you? That's just like, talk about job security.
That's
and
like us having our sponsors just backed up right now.
It is.
Just-
They're waiting.
Just
We're
beating down
holding
the
them.
door. Yeah. Wow.
Crazy.
All right, so let's quickly run through the 737 MAX 8S issues and then end on some fun facts.
Yeah.
So, bring this thing back.
Yeah,
up. How
we'll
about that?
we'll bring it back.
So, for those of you who somehow don't know, if you live in more of a cave than I do, the crashes of the Lion Air Flight 610 and the Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302 in 2018 and early 2019 are what we're talking about. Now, these planes themselves have been flying since 2017.
Yeah.
So I guess Boeing is still standing by that this is like a freak occurrence and there's nothing wrong with the plane.
Two things isn't a freak occurrence.
Well, that's what I think they're kind of standing by. But, of course, now everything's been grounded and they're looking into it as they very well should be. So 12 minutes and 6 minutes after takeoff for both of those, the planes crashed. So I guess it makes me feel better that if I'm flying for like 20 minutes, I'm probably good. But still, 12 minutes and 6 minutes, that's really just awful.
So, okay.
So everyone grounded it, and then America, for some reason, was like, yeah, we're not going to do that yet. And then it took a few more days. Like, they still grounded it pretty quickly, but I didn't think they did it quickly enough.
I don't know if I would want to get on one
No,
right now.
no. I know, and I was flying around the time of the second
Yeah, I
one, and
remember
I was
you
like,
were.
oh, this isn't cool.
So interesting thing. So the Max. So here's some of the. This isn't too technical, but the Max itself has larger engines than the typical 777 or whatever the size one.
737?
Yes, it has larger engines. So, and because it has these larger engines, it's more likely to stall, it says, under certain flight conditions. So what they did was they developed this automatic system known as MCAS. I don't know what the acronym stands for.
Maneuvering Characteristics Augmentation System.
And what it does, whenever it indicates that a MAX is going to potentially stall, the system automatically takes over, unbeknownst to the pilot's control, and it actually pushes the plane's nose down in some circumstances in order to stabilize the aircraft and make sure it doesn't crash. The crazy thing that I read about was there were pilots who said they never knew this MCAS system even existed.
Yeah.
And
The training seems to be a little lacking.
Yeah,
And there's a big fight about
it was
that,
on an
too.
iPad.
Yeah.
You got hundreds
Doesn't
of
that
people's
scare you?
lives in the back of your plane. So and I think what they determined based off of some of the recordings, and they didn't know what was going on. The pilots didn't see, like, these alarms are going off. They didn't know how to correct. They didn't know how to shut the system off, and that's what caused some of the problems.
That's nuts. Yeah, so they say that they think it's a faulty sensor that erroneously reported this, like, stalling was going to happen,
Yeah.
and so it automatically dipped the nose, which was no good. So they weren't able to recover from that, and that's why these crashes took place. It takes readings from 2 sensors, and the thing that I thought was, I guess I don't want to get into how technical it is, but what I thought was interesting is the reason that a lot of this was done, like the moving of the engines that were larger and more powerful, and some of the issues in this new system that wasn't on the 737, was for the sake of becoming more fuel efficient. And because of that, like, this new system was created, and that's kind of why planes are crashing. So to save on fuel, not that that's a bad thing, you want that, and we all want our ticket prices down, but wow. I think the training really is a big issue,
on
though.
an iPad?
Unbelievable that that's the way things work.
Yeah, I think
and
that's
there are
kinda
a lot of complaints. So the pilots are saying they're not given enough training. Another thing is that for additional safety features to be added into the plane that might help with things like this, that's actually counted as a customization option by Boeing and by all airlines.
Yeah.
And so that airlines would then have to pay extra. So it's kind of like having nicer seats or having the television screens in the seats. This would be another one of those customization upgrades, is safety features.
You would think like the FAA would do like what like they do with cars. It's like mandatory to have these safety features on cars.
Well, now they're going to be willing to upgrade these planes for free. One of the horrible things as well, the families for the victims, at least I think in the Lion Air case, in order to collect on payments of $91,600, families are being required to sign a pledge promising not to pursue legal action against Lion Air's, its financial backers, and Boeing. And the pledge apparently is in violation of Indonesian law.
So you get $90,000 for losing a loved one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of shady.
Yeah, it is shady.
I guess that's typical in that kind of practice, but that's still
but
unfortunate.
My goodness.
Let's finish on kind of a high note.
Let's do it.
Yeah, so I got the only one I have, and I see you have a couple of extra fun facts. So they have this thing called Boeing Phantom Works that I saw, and it's an advanced prototyping arm of the defense and security side of Boeing, and they primarily focus on advanced military products and technologies that are like super classified. So this was actually a part of McDonnell Douglas's research and things they were doing at the time, and obviously Boeing got them acquired. So I don't know anything about it, but the fact that they have a division of their company called Phantom Works, and they have a logo too. It looks like a shady guy wearing a hat. So I just thought that was kind of neat.
That is kind of neat. I always felt like McDonnell Douglas was more on the military side of things than commercial airliners. 2 things for me. One, we talked about all those planes and those back orders and whatnot. They are working on developing the 787-10 Dreamliner, which sounds wonderful. It sounds like it will be great for me to ride on. And also the 777X, in theory. I don't know if they kind of put a halt to new creations or not at this point. Also, a sort of fun fact, if you're not an investor, I looked at BA, which is the Boeing stock.
Okay.
When I was doing my research at that time for the year, it had a high over 440, and it was down to 357.
Ooh.
So that's what, $100 per share almost. Ouch.
It's a lot.
Glad I just put my money under the mattress.
That's what I do. I put it in an ice box.
Yeah, that's smart.
A freezer. For those of you who don't know what an ice box is, kids.
Yeah. Well, I feel like we didn't really save that and make it positive after that ending. But you know what? Hopefully everybody enjoyed it anyways and learned a lot about Boeing and companies that built the world.
Ooh.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty good.
That was awesome.
All right. Well, if you learned something and you loved it, email us at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com. Subscribe, review, all that good stuff. And until next time.
See ya.